Hi everyone, I'm Rich and this is Mission 1820. Envy's hit each of us at one time or another. Who hasn't envied that good-looking movie star or that rich professional athlete or maybe a good friend that has it all? Well, envy is that feeling that what you have simply isn't enough and that someone else's success somehow makes you feel smaller. Well, in this week's Sins of the Bible series, we're going to take a look at what envy really is, why it's so destructive, and how God helps us to overcome it. Envy is more than simply jealousy. Envy is that resentment we feel when someone else has something we want. That could be their success, it could be their recognition, their possessions, even the relationships that they might be in. At its core, envy isn't just desiring what others have, but it's actually resenting them for having it. The Bible's original languages help us understand envy a little bit more clearly. Now, in the Greek, we have one common word, which is phthonos. This refers to a destructive, spiteful envy, the kind that actually wants to take away the good that someone else is enjoying. Another Greek term is zelo, which we get our English word zeal and jealousy from. Depending on context, zelo can be positive, kind of like passionate devotion, or negative, which is bitter jealousy. When it's used negatively, it does overlap with envy, which is describing a rivalry or even an unhealthy comparison to something. So envy in Scripture doesn't just desire what others have. It's that bitter attitude that can even make us wish harm on others. The Bible warns us against envy repeatedly. Proverbs chapter 14, verse 30 says, "A heart of peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones." And that word envy reflects that deep inner corruption that eats away at our own peace. James in chapter 3, verse 16 uses the word zelo when it says, "For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice." Here, James shows us that envy doesn't stay hidden because it leads to division and a destructive behavior. Now, in a spiritual context, envy is simply a waste of time and effort on our part because it does damage us in several ways. First, envy steals our joy. You see, when we spend time comparing ourselves to others, then contentment simply can't be in our heart. Second, envy poisons relationships. How can we possibly show love towards another when we have resentment towards them? And then third, envy blinds us spiritually. Envy makes us doubt God's goodness and His provision for our lives. We might even get to the point where we're questioning God as to why we don't have what the famous people have. Instead of trusting God, envy literally whispers in our ears that God has given others the better looks, the more money, and He simply left us behind. So how can we overcome that envious heart? Well, for starters, the Bible tells us that the antidote to envy is gratitude and love. Gratitude acknowledges God's blessing in our own lives while still allowing us to celebrate the blessing of others. Paul reminds us in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4, when he says, "Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, and it is not proud." When love and gratitude shape our perspective, envy begins to lose its grip on our thinking because the enemy can no longer convince us that what he has to offer us is better than what God has for us. Envy is a common sin, and it's a very dangerous one that we've all struggled with at times. But God gives us hope because through His Son, Jesus Christ, we can be free from envy. We can live our life with joy. We can live it with peace and love because we can celebrate the blessings of others while still trusting God's plan for our own lives. The root of envy is a dissatisfied heart, which means that we experience envy when we cannot have what our eyes and our hearts desire. So let me close with this thought. If you feel that envy is sneaking into your heart today, bring it to God. Ask Him to guide you and to trust Him. And when we thank God for His gifts and we rejoice with others and theirs, you're soon going to see that envy is going to be replaced by peace. So until next week, God bless and thanks for watching.